Hi, welcome to Demo Garage. I'm Steven, and in today's episode I'll be talking about the carbon filter that I built to replace the original on my 1973 TVR 2500M. I removed the original smog equipment, but I still wanted some vapor expansion protection, and this is how I did it. Follow me, I'll show you how I did it. Okay, so I'm not ready to replace this fuel tank yet, but I'm in here messing around doing the electrical. So I thought I would take this existing hole that was part of the original vent system on this tank, and I thought I would install this vent line, and this is going to be part of a new charcoal filter that I'm planning on mounting across this back edge when I do replace this fuel tank. So yeah, so I don't think there's much to show you, but I'm going to be enlarging that hole slightly, slipping this guy in through that hole and securing it. And then so the charcoal filter will eventually be venting to the space outside of the vehicle. So, yep. I'll bring you back when I've got something more to show you. Okay, so in this step, I've disassembled the tube, basically just unscrewed the caps. These caps have a couple of O-rings on them, and I have used a hole saw and that center punch right there, and I've cut a center out of one cap and installed this bulkhead fitting. I think I'm going to, there's a, let's see, here we go. There are two little O-rings there, and then I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut a slot in this, and then so I can put a screwdriver, and then I'll tighten this one down. That'll keep her from spinning while I tighten it, and I'll use a large dose of red Loctite, and then I'll probably cut this one flush. I don't need it sticking out that much. This will be the hose barb that I use to connect it to the fuel line, or the vapor fuel hose. So for this charcoal vent, this is the first step, or one of the first steps. I'm going to go ahead and cut a hole in this one, and I'll bring you back in a few minutes. Bye. Okay, so both holes are cut. I have slotted this upper one so I can keep it from turning with the screwdriver while I tighten this one with the wrench. And then again, this has been assembled with the two O-rings. You can maybe see a little bit of the red Loctite I used, and then I trimmed the excess flush because it won't be needed with the hose barb. So this is one end complete. This one's tight, and I'm going to cut it flush and sand it down to that surface, and I'll bring you back when I have something to show you. Okay, here's the next step on the charcoal filter. I've just used a regular pair of scissors and cut myself a few circles in the stainless steel mesh I just purchased. And I put a little dab of silicone just to keep them in place. And after these is set up a little bit, I'm gonna pack the cylinder with the charcoal, and I'll bring you back when I'm ready to do that. Thanks. Okay, so these are what the little carbon flakes look like, these little pellets. I used the better part of this container, and I filled the cylinder pretty well, and it's got an O-ring to seal it. Screw this guy on, and I'll try and figure out where to install this. I've got some clamps that should work well with the cylinder diameter, so I'm going to tighten that up, and I'll bring you back. Okay, here's the next step of the charcoal filter, and you can see I've completed that. It's now bolted through this fiberglass plate This half of the bracket looks like this, so I was able to drill a couple of holes with some right angle drill bits, and it was a real pain in the backside getting some screws in there between the bracket and the fuel tank, but this part is done. This is just a like a strainer with a screen on it that exits in the well beside the differential. So the next step is to find this little pressure check valve that I purchased months ago. It's some sort of a Mercedes part. So when I locate that, I'll bring you back and let you know what part I used. But this is going to be for when the fuel tank gas heats up in the day and needs to burp off. This pressure check valve will open and allow, you know, that pressure to escape into below the car. So yeah, this charcoal filter project is getting close to being done, and I'll bring you back when I got something else to show you. Okay, so the next step on this charcoal filter is to connect this line with this line. And the idea is I'm going to try and have it come up and jam up as high above the fuel tank as I can get it to go, and then come back down and connect here. Took me a little while going through my parts. This is the little pressure fuel check valve that I knew I had purchased a while back, but couldn't remember exactly where it was. But I don't know if you can read that, but this is, I think, getting harder to find. It was, my memory was it was a Mercedes part. I did some design research on Google, you know, just looking up how to do something like this. And one person suggested using this part number. And I think I got it on eBay or something, I don't remember. But it does pose a little bit of a problem. I don't know where I thought, I guess maybe knowing this is the valve or the exit filter that I wanted to use, I knew what size hose barb to buy here, and then I just went crazy and got hose barbs in this size here and here, and this is much smaller. So not that big a loss, because to tell you the truth, I was a little afraid of how high this one was standing. It would barely just clear, and I might have had to tap this bung a little deeper to make it fit. But if I get an adapter and go with a smaller hose diameter, this might actually sit a little bit lower, and then smaller hose, and then I can get an adapter barb for that fits this, and then that'll actually make it easier to jam the hose up underneath this trim panel as a little bit higher. So not a big loss, but I think this deserves a McMaster car purchase, and so I don't think I'll be advancing this project anymore this holiday season, but I shall get the parts soon enough. So yeah, I'll bring you back when I got something more to show you on that one. Thanks. Okay, so another clip on the carbon filter. In the last clip, I think I described that I was going to be installing this check valve, and I realized, oh shoot, I've got the wrong barb fitting on there. Well, I've got a series of new parts. So I've got an adapter here, and so there will be 5/16 line that goes there. I'm also going to be redoing this fitting on the top of the tank. So I'm going to be making that. I've got this pipe plug that I drilled a hole through the center. I've got this steel brake line that I'm going to trim and make a low profile version. And I'll cut that short, and that'll be my 5/16 line that goes to the tube. So, and I'm planning on soldering this joint. I'll have a clip of how I do that. hopefully that'll work out fine. And then so the line's gonna be coming from here, and then I'm going to have a hose connected to it. I'm gonna jam this up as high as I can get it, as high above the fuel tank as possible. And this came, I guess, from the, I don't know, beer making business. I found it, 5/16 barb, small 180 degree turn. So I'm gonna have that up underneath here as far as I can get it. And then the hose will come back down to the check valve and to this guy. So I think that's gonna work out fine. And yeah, so let me get to throwing the correct barb on this, pulling this guy off, and then I shall probably bring you back in the next clip where I solder those two together, and I'll bring you back. Okay, so I did pre-fit this brass plug in the aluminum fuel tank, and I felt like it could sit a little bit lower, so I threw a tap with some grease on it to collect the shavings, and I tapped the bung a little deeper. And when I was happy with the position of this plug, I made a mark, you know, approximately 20 degrees out from the final tightened position. And then I have now soldered this steel brake line, 5/16 brake line, into position. And I think it turned out pretty good. I had already ground the bottom of that. It was hot, so I put it back in the vise. But I'm going to go ahead and figure out where I want to trim this guy, maybe about here, find some appropriate hose clamps, and reassemble this guy. So I'm gonna bring you back in another clip. Thanks. Okay, that's all she wrote for this episode. The charcoal filter is completed. To recap, I've got the exit point. You know, this is a marine grade item, and it goes into the well. Got that raven in the background. I'll try and ignore him. Please do so yourself. And so it exhausts the fuel tank vapors to a space outside the vehicle, like by the differential. We've got line coming to a cylinder sealed on both sides, containing the charcoal elements, and there's a couple of stainless steel screens on both sides. And then I go down to this size where I've got this Mercedes check valve. And so the whole purpose of this is to give the fuel expansion during hot weather somewhere to go, the vapors. Yeah, so this has got a little check valve, and I've given the Mercedes part number in the past. It travels underneath, comes to this line, this turnaround point. This is an item I got from, I guess, beer brewing. And the idea is it's gonna jam up underneath here. I was gonna wait to do that until after I showed you how that went together. And then the lines come back here and go to a welded-in bung that I had done before installing the tank. And I've got this 5/16 line that has a 90 degree in it, brazed into a brass pipe plug. So this completes this episode, and I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. And I'm almost ready to button up this back end. So thanks for joining me. This has been Demo Garage, and I appreciate you coming along for the ride. Bye.